And then when it all sort of clicked in the store, when it was like, oh, this is what I need to do. I need to be discovering brands, not just like going to trade shows and like what is being dished out there, for retailers. I need to actually be more instrumental in terms of like choosing. And that's when it really started to switch. That's when the articles started coming out about clothing and everything else.
Hi, and welcome to Handbag Designer 101, the podcast with your host, Emily Blumenthal, handbag industry expert and the handbag fairy godmother. Each week, we uncover the stories behind the handbags we love, from the iconic brands and top designers to the creativity, craftsmanship, and culture that define the handbag world. Whether you're a designer, collector, or simply passionate about handbags, this is your front row seat to it all. Welcome, Stephen Allen, to Handbag Designer 101, the podcast. I feel like I'm with founder royalty here. Thank you for joining us today.
Very welcome. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yes, I told you we go way back. You said you remembered, but I don't think you really did. But you did speak on one of the industry panels that I had years back. I think you were on it with maybe 𝐉𝐸𝐺 and Richard Kestenbaum. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
That was mine. So that's good.
All right. It's all connecting now.
Yeah. But I have had the fortunate pleasure to speak with many, it's almost all but two so far. I've got two left of people that you have discovered, put on the map, taken to the next level, what made these people go from nobody to somebody. So if I can do this, and obviously not in discovery order, we've Monica Bach here, Joy and Peter Grayson, Claire Vivier, aka Claire V, and now I'm missing Foley and Karina and Loeffler Randall. Am I missing anybody else?
I mean, there was definitely other handbag designers, but I don't think anyone that really comes to mind that I feel like is someone that, yeah. It wasn't really our main focus in the showroom either. It was just something that we did in conjunction with clothing, but it was definitely a big part of what we did, working with these different brands.
So you had this prolific showroom, and I started my handbag brand in the early 2000s, and it did not go where everybody else's brand, but I am really good at finding people and discovering people and talking to people. That's my strength. Building my own personal handbag brand at the time, not so much. I'm good on the sidelines and elevating, and that's become what my MO is with the handbag awards and everything else within this community of handbag designers. But you started a showroom, but why did you start a showroom? What led us all the way to getting to the showroom narrative? Because that's real estate. That's taking on brands. That's like having to have other people get their act together that you need to rely on for them to do their thing, for you to make money. How did this all come to be?
Well, when I started, I started the store and I had kind of no limits in terms of categories that I wanted to sell in the store. But my store was tiny. I was starting out right out of college, and I found a store, in this area of Soho that was really kind of neglected. There was graffiti all over the outside of the building, bars on the windows. You couldn't even look into the store. And I was like, okay, this is the spot, and it was really cheap. It was like $2,500 a month rent at the time, and probably 500 square feet. And so I did that. And I really knew the accessory business pretty well. I didn't know the clothing business well at that time. And I'm not trained as a designer. I grew up with parents that are in retail, and I have been to a lot of trade shows and so forth. But anyway, it was something that I really liked, and I had and I used to get frustrated when people would write about the store and they would mention, all the great comments about the accessories and jewelry and stuff like that, but they wouldn't mention the clothing. I was like, why aren't they mentioning the clothing? And then I realized that I was just going to the trade shows, and buying like other buyers and finding brands at the trade shows. And that really wasn't satisfying. Whereas with jewelry and with some handbags, and accessories, I kind of had this almost like inside knowledge because I knew these people and I knew friends of these people, and it was very early stage when I started representing them. And so eventually I really found that, through the accessory brands, they had friends that were clothing designers, and then that kind of built up. And it was frustrating in the beginning because we were getting a lot of press and we were getting a lot of stores coming into the store, and they would be like, like
Where'd you
basically they
find
might as
this?
well have like a pencil and a paper, in their hands, taking notes. And it was just like on everything. And then some of the brands would call me and they'd be like, "Oh, we were contacted." Because at that point, it was like there was no showrooms really representing these kinds of designers. The showrooms were like in the garment center, and you kind of like had to be doing millions of dollars for the most part for a lot of these showrooms to even represent you.
Right, right, right.
And so they had asked me if I would represent them, because what was happening is they were getting contacted by stores, and the store could have been like 2 blocks from me. And I was like, "You can't sell to that store. They're 2 blocks from me." Like, it's completely a conflict, like it takes the specialness out. And
Right.
then I thought about it and I thought, okay, well, you know, it's not
That's
good for
quite the
me.
pivot,
Yeah,
though.
it's not
It's
good for
like,
me, but it's also not good for the brand.
right,
Like they need to have clean distribution and be able to find the best stores to work with. And, the best stores are not necessarily the same for every brand. Like one store could be maybe objectively better than another store, but that store might not give the brand true space on the floor and be really behind it. And store number two might be also a good store, maybe not quite as good, but it could be better for that brand. Anyway, I thought, okay, I can combine this with what I'm doing and open a showroom. And so the mezzanine of that particular store, as small as it was the showroom. And I started, representing designers. In the beginning, it was like Rebecca Dannenberg, Milk Fed, Built by Wendy, Cake, Pixie Yates. Like those were the initial kind of lineup. And then what happened was we really outgrew that space. And I thought, okay, I need a big showroom. But again, it was sort of like, you know, me financing the whole business. So I was like, okay, I have to move my apartment. I'll just get a new apartment and that'll be my showroom. So I found a loft in Soho and I lived in the back. I built a wall and then I had the showroom in the front, and we built that out. And then, eventually after 9/11 happened, I thought, you know what? It would be good to have a bigger store and a place where it could also be my showroom. And it sort of made sense because rents at that time, obviously, they were very cheap downtown. And so, yeah, so I was able to get a good deal for the first couple years on a space. And I started representing designers in the basement. And then I had my store on the first floor. And I thought maybe eventually this will be busier than my Soho location. And then I'll just move everything. But like within 6 months, it was busier, despite it being like ground zero. So I closed the Soho store, focused on the Tribeca store. And then eventually we really needed that basement space for storage. And so I took another space on Franklin Street, which became the showroom. And yeah, I started representing all these designers, and we had anywhere from 15 to 20 brands at any given time.
so I like this is quite the journey, but you said you opened up the store right out of college and you grew up with parents in retail. What was that? Like what was like, hey, I've just spent 4 years learning, going to school, getting a degree. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to open up a store. Like how did all that come to be? Because that's not what
Yeah,
everybody's
I mean, I
goal
knew I
is.
wasn't going to go work on Wall Street, and I knew I wasn't like going to have some sort of a desk job. And in college, I was studying undergraduate business. It was this entrepreneurship program at USC, and I wrote my business plan on kind of like the idea of, I mean, really, I was interested in real estate and entrepreneurship, and at the time, I was thinking about like developing a neighborhood and taking several stores. Like imagine having 10 stores on one block, or, around the block kind of thing, and sort of creating a neighborhood where rents would be cheap. And at the time, I was thinking like the Lower East Side would make sense because stores were like 1,000 to 2,000 a
Right.
month. And it was actually doable, not by me, but if I had a investor at the time. I thought this could be great. And then I would be overseeing different people running each shop. So I'd find the best shoe shop, and that would be like
Right.
Stephen Allen Shoes, and the best bakery would be Stephen Allen Bakery, and so forth. And sort of creating a neighborhood. So that was the idea.
The neighborhood of
And
Stephen.
yeah, yeah, I thought it would be really fun to do. And, you know,
What did your parents do?
my father's a jewelry designer, and my mother and my father had stores growing up. They started out on 57th Street for like 13 years, and then they tore the building down. Then they moved to 60th, and then they had a second store on Columbus Avenue. And so after I graduated, I was managing their store, and then I started buying and selling like collectible watches. And then that business, I saved up money from that business to open the first store.
So you grew up in New York City then? You went to
I
high school
did.
here and
Yeah.
everything?
Yeah. I actually went to an art high school where they have fashion as a major. It's called the High School of Art and Design. Marc Jacobs and Calvin Klein went there. But funny enough, I never took one fashion class. I always found it kind of pretentious. So I was a photography and then switched to film and video major. And then I thought, okay, I should study business in college because I'm not going to study photography anymore because I already was developing my own pictures, and I kind of like knew whatever I needed to know to do that. And then I just thought the store made a lot of sense when I graduated.
Did your parents have any opinion of you, quote unquote, staying in the business? Because as Garmento offspring myself, when I ended up starting my own handbag brand and my dad was a converter, my whole life was in the garment center. And I remember telling him that. And he's like, biggest mistake. Don't do it. Don't do it. Nobody makes any money. There's no point. I mean, I grew up with piece goods and understanding bad lab dips and that, we grew up wearing seconds and closeouts and jeans that had mismatched legs and socks that were,
Yeah.
one was dyed differently than the other. And the whole construct of going into that business, as far as they were concerned, was like, what's wrong with you? Like, you have choices. You went to college. You don't need to be doing this. Did they have opinions? And by the way, the fact that you had entrepreneurship, I mean, when I was getting my MBA, they had a very, very, very small entrepreneurship program. So having entrepreneurship way back when was perceived, okay, you're opening up your own business. That's cute. Like, why do you need a title for it? So did they have opinions and thoughts? And did that impact you? Because they're
Yeah,
either
that was
all
the
for
one
it or all
language.
against it.
Yeah. I mean, that was the one language that they really spoke was retail. And throughout my entire life, I mean, they had worked 6 days a week or
Yeah.
seven at a lot of times. So it was something like, had I told them I was going into anything else, they would probably not really relate, but they definitely understood retail, and they definitely knew that I had a feeling for it. I've always loved product, and both buying products, finding brands, and then designing product. Those are my two favorite. They still are my two favorite things. And I would say that in the business, that's definitely what I focus on the most.
So there is something to be said about, because I assume you worked in the store growing up. Like, you had it was kind of understood. Like, okay, you're going to come work here and you're going to come
No,
buying
definitely
chips.
not. It wasn't
Oh,
understood that I was
really?
going to go into their business at all. No.
Did you work there through high school? You were working there through high school, no?
No, no, I wasn't. I would go in there, and I would go with them like on a Sunday if there was a trade show. I would go with them because it was like there was nothing else to do. So that I would do, but I never thought that I would be going into their business. And it's funny enough, I have a brother who's 3 years younger, and he definitely was not going to go into like he was like went to Harvard, studied visual and environmental studies. And the last thing I would have ever thought he would have done is gone into retail. And he lives in Paris, and he's got restaurants there. So he's also in retail. So it's funny.
I read this study, and I've spoken about this before, that one way or another, what your parents have done has such a deep imprint on who you are that you could try to escape it, but without fail, you will end up following in their footsteps or replicating their footprint in some capacity just because it's so ingrained in you without even being aware that like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this, but I guess I am doing this. Well, I'm really good at it. Well, I've been exposed to it and all this stuff makes sense and it's low hanging fruit. And I guess I am passionate about it because I get it because I've seen it my whole life. It's interesting how all that kind of comes to be, especially when you were saying that in your store, the jewelry was doing well. And you're like, what about the apparel? But yet you'd grown up with jewelry anyway. So you clearly had a sensitivity, had a sense of what could sell because you've been around it so much. Do you think that's the case?
Definitely. And then when it all sort of clicked in the store, when it was like, oh, this is what I need to do. I need to be discovering brands, not just like going to trade shows and like what is being dished out there, for retailers. I need to actually be more instrumental in terms of like choosing. And that's when it really started to switch. That's when the articles started coming out about clothing and everything else. And then it was a known thing. I mean, we were selling when I opened the showroom, I think I had like 750 accounts all over the world. So we were selling to department stores, specialty stores, and it was very easy, like when I saw a brand that I thought had potential, it was like, okay. It was kind of like I visualized it, like it was clear to me that they would be successful. And I knew what I needed to do to make that happen. And it didn't matter if the brand had a huge collection or had like, 10 pieces or 10 items or whatever. It was more about the DNA of the brand. And if I could see that they really had
their own
vision,
point of view.
Like someone like Claire, it was very clear. She came in with like a bag of bags. Like literally, it was like they all fit in one bag. And she's like, yeah, I sewed these myself. And I remember I showed it to my showroom director at the time. And she was like, Steven, come on. This is like 5 bags. Like, are you serious? And I was like, no. She has talent. This is going to be huge. And she's like, okay, I'm going to do it because it's your showroom and you're saying to do it. But mark my words, whatever, something like that. And and I was like, okay. And it was obviously it is. And she's fantastic. And she's just kept sort of refining it and really has her own language and DNA about the brand. I mean, for Rizzoli to come out with a book,
I know,
2 years ago, on a handbag
right
designer,
here.
that's something.
Can I ask you though, having worked with so many independent designers, how and with the awards, and purely because I've dealt with so many and so many who've won and I could see their talent and I could see what they're capable of and they have a clear vision and a clear voice. But I've called this basement to Beyonce, where they get a little bit of attention and they get a spotlight. And then all of a sudden, you have to educate them on pricing and realizing like because they lack economies of scale, their products are way too expensive and you have to educate them. And it's very confusing and frustrating when you're like, I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you grow. I'm offering you resources, opportunities, retail. Like I can help you, but you're going to get in your own way. You're the one who's going to stop your own success. How have you dealt with that? Because look, that's like 8 designers, right? We have who are prolific, like Claire Vivier, aka Claire V, is, I feel like, very unique. She's very calm. She's very thoughtful. She's very focused. She's very much no ego, right? It's one of the things that makes her such a unique person, that she really has something special about her in that regard. How did you deal with designers that you were like, ugh, if only, and I got to let it go?
If you ever wanted to start a handbag line and didn't know where to start, this is for you.
Living proof that independent designers can make it big.
Absolutely, Blumenthal is one prime example.
If you had dreams of becoming a handbag designer and didn't know where to start, this is for you. If you have a handbag brand and are in need of strategy and direction, this is for you. I'm Emily Blumenthal, handbag fairy godmother and handbag designer expert, and this is Handbag Designer 101, the masterclass. Over the next 10 classes, I will break down everything you need to know how to make, market, and manufacture a handbag. Broken down for you that you'll not only skip steps in that handbag building process, but also save money in that learning curve. For the past 20 years, I've been teaching at the top fashion universities in New York City, created the Handbag Awards, and also the Handbag Designer 101 podcast. I'm going to show you like I have countless brands from sketch to sample to shelf, whether you're just starting out and don't know where to begin, or even if you have a handbag line and just need some strategic direction, the Handbag Designer 101 Masterclass is just for you. So let's get started, and you will be the creator of the next it bag. Join me, Emily Blumenthal, with the Handbag Designer 101 Masterclass.
Yeah, I mean, I dealt with them a lot. I mean, I was on the board of the CFDA, the admissions board, so I dealt with designers that were applying to the CFDA. I also mentored brands for a while, and you would see it, and you'd see certain brands that were really drawn to the spotlight, and that was their focus. And some brands were brands that should be, that's what they do. That's what they do well. They do these amazing fashion shows. They're great with press. And then there's other brands that are like, why are you spending this money on a show? You need to just spend the money on the collection. Don't, and it was just sort of hiring PR companies, then paying ridiculous amounts of money for a lot of these brands, when it wasn't really warranted yet, so anyway, there was all kinds of things that you would see, doing that. And, a lot of times it was, I would meet with brands even before, when Monsieur Gabriel started, I met with them before they even had a bag, and they asked me, what would we do? And it was at an art party. And I think we were their first account, I believe. And I think there was, from being in our store, they were in Bergdorf's and other, everyone else kind of picked them up. But I don't know. I got off the subject, but yeah. So being with CFDA, I definitely saw a lot of this with brands.
Had you dealt with someone that you thought was going to be like a star student, and then you saw that they got blinded by the spotlight? Again, you hit the nail on the head. It's within the Handbag Designer Masterclass that I teach purely for independent designers, because I'd worked with them for so long. And then the same questions kept coming up over and over and over and over again, that I'm like, okay, let me just templatize it. If you want to pay for it, it's there. Here, find your audience, go through your chasm, your customer, your agony, solution, monetization, understanding who your customer is on a deeper level. So before you go spending money and thinking, I need to pay for a publicist, I need to pay for a sales rep, I need a show, I need overhead. It's what's your hero bag? What's your collection? What's your DNA? How are you going to grow this? What's the one bag that is going to sell over and over and over again? Have you figured out pricing? Who do you match up with? And I had this ongoing joke with a lot of the designers where they say they almost got into Saks. Actually, I used to say Barney's because it was, RIP Barney's. But I almost got into Barney's, and I said, I almost got into Barney's too, but then I went and had sushi. It's you either are or you're not. And if you're not, it's for good reason. So how would you handle those designers that you're like, God, you're so talented. I could do so much with you if you'd let me. You had to cut your losses and get over it and be like, you know what?
I had a designer, for example, who I thought was very talented, and we had been contacted by a businessman. She was from New Zealand and he was from New Zealand, and he was very excited that, there was a little story about this New Zealand designer, and, that there was someone from, and he wanted to meet her. And we had brunch at Barney's, actually, at, what was it, Fred's? Is that what it was? On those six? Yeah. And he was like, look, and this is literally just starting out time, and he said, all right, well, tomorrow I'll send $100,000 into your account and let's get started. and we'll do this 50-50. And it was like, literally at the time, it was like tiny, tiny. And then I remember having the conversation with her and her saying, like, I don't think that's fair. Like, why should he get 50% of my business? I'm like, you understand, this is someone who's like, for no other reason other than you're both from New Zealand and he wants to help you. And I think, this could be a good opportunity. Anyway, she didn't do it. And she stopped designing shortly thereafter. But I really felt like that was something that, as an example, I really felt strongly. Sometimes it's like, you just have to know when is the right time.
So, yeah, when to call it, at least on your end. It sounds like you have a really good sense on how to pull emotion out of finding something. Like, okay, I got to let it go. Moving on. Like, I'm not getting water from this stone. Next. That's an interesting skill set to know, like, I'm calling it. We're moving on. Thanks, next, bye.
Yeah. Yeah. And also knowing, I feel like, for example, Steve Jobs, like when he was CEO of Apple and then he left Apple because they replaced him with another CEO.
Right.
And then you're like, how could they do that? It's Steve Jobs. Like, it's his company. He knows it better than anybody. And certainly he does. But there's like certain times where like you have to allow people to kind of like step in. I had a husband and wife team that I wanted to represent. I remember at the time. And he was like a very talented dress designer. And she was kind of like his, like, part of the team, and it was
right.
But it was like she was like it was clear that he needed to have someone else represent him. It wasn't really, and this has happened with other brands as well, when it's just sort of like, but they're kind of like close or they're in a relationship or whatever it is. And I remember having that meeting and it was very clear. It's like that she did not want me to be representing him because that was her role in the relationship.
Right.
So even though like she was there at the meeting, like on the surface about like interviewing me, they never hired anybody because it was like, again, it was clear. And same thing, they shut down. They were huge, and you would know them if I told you. I'll tell you off the record. But anyway, I don't like to badmouth anybody.
No, it's, as someone who started their brand at 26, and I think there's something to be said about the evolution of starting your first business, your first brand, your first artistic way to make money off of something that you've created, that a lot of people, even the most resound, logical people, all that gets thrown out the window when they're like, ooh, I'm doing something creative. It's me. It's my voice. It's my vision. And they treat the product they've created and they call it their baby. And, it's all heart and soul and emotion and Garmento offspring. I was always taught there's no emotion in business. And you know what? I have 3 kids. Those are my kids. But now it's very clear to me now, years later, that what I've created, it's not my baby. It's a business. It's a way to copy paste, make money. And it's a gift that I've been able to do what it takes to create it. But I think dropping ego and realizing like what's best for the product that I've created is a very hard pill to swallow. And you can't be the one to take the time to educate because then that's time value of money lost on what you do. So I'm sure that's been an interesting conversation on your end being like, okay, well, let me know if you change your mind. You know where to find me. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to touch on the fact that you've been able to, you're known for discovering lots and lots of people and lots of brands. Obviously, from where I sit, I can only speak about the ones that I know the most. Why do you think within the scope of handbags, you really have this magic touch? Because there's very few people. Like there was one particular woman, and again, not speaking ill of people or showrooms that are no longer here, but who was very well known for picking up handbag brands and being able to find she was very expensive, wasn't very good to her designers. And therefore, they would stay until they couldn't. And then when they couldn't, she'd punish them for it. Like, okay, you've left me, you've ditched me. I was the one who discovered you. How are you able to find these brands grow with them and still retain and sustain these kinds of partnerships and relationships? Like, you're still part of Claire's brand, if I'm not mistaken. Like, how are you able to stand the test of time? Like, you have your own life, you have a showroom, you have a store, you've got kids. Like, how are you able to do all of that and say, okay, I want to keep working with you?
Well, I thought that the model of the showroom, I mean, there is something about that model that I always thought it would be good to be able to invest in the beginning with these brands because, it is a lot of work, especially in the first few years in terms of building the business. That's kind of like sometimes the most work, and getting it and what has to happen. So I think that, I mean, for me, it's just, well, I don't know how else to answer it, really.
Well, in terms of, you were able to find these designers at different times and different stages. When you said, okay, I'll invest in you, did you get pushback? Did you have to sell them on it? Or were they like, okay, it's
No,
Stephen
no, they were
Allen?
very
Like,
excited about it. And in the beginning, I wasn't even sure that the showroom should be called Stephen Allen Showroom because I was like, should it be Stephen Allen Showroom? Because it's really not about me, it's about them. And then I found that the designers were like, no, are you kidding? Don't change the name from Stephen Allen Showroom. We like, it's in good company. Like, and it really was very complimentary. We never had brands that I felt like competed with other brands in our showroom. And I think that getting back to your first question in terms of why handbags and what was it about handbags, I really think that having grown up in a family where my father makes jewelry and I used to go to these shows and accessory shows and I obsess over the littlest details. I mean, with everything. I mean, I'm like that, there was like my wife had bought a soap dispenser the other day and I was like, what is this? Like it was just like I didn't like it. I didn't like the touch of it. I got rid of it. It was just like plastic. It was just not good. And
did she know it was going to disappear?
no, she didn't actually. I thought that she bought it. It was just like it was there from I think we had I don't know. I think I had a shoot at the house or something and someone had brought it. But anyway, yeah, so I think that's why. I think it's about with handbags, it's a small object. And, to me, there's a lot of handbags that look very similar. And if you don't really get the details, if you don't get the hand of the leather and you don't really get the hardware piece and, and where the zipper should be and how it's going to look on you, like there's just like those little things. And it could be a very simple shape, but there's one tote that's right and one tote that's wrong. And there's like a little clutch that's right and a little clutch that's wrong. So I think that it's fun to look at that. And sometimes with clothing, it's just like so much. You're looking at so much. And I feel like designers are often forced to reinvent, not out of this desire necessarily to create. I'm talking about like with clothing designers a lot, but just like, okay, it's a new collection. So I've got to like put out all this brand new stuff.
Right.
And, create a collection for this season. And
Right.
some designers are able to do it and it's like amazing. And I feel like they have that vision and it still has their DNA on it. And then other designers, I feel like, what is this? Like if I didn't see the label, I would have no idea that that's that designer. And so for me, that's not very rewarding is to find brands like that are just sort of chasing fashion.
Right. How based on, your I think it's like 20 plus years that you've been in the business. Where do you stand today
31.
with, oh my God. Well, I didn't want to triple it. I kind of knew that, but didn't want to say it. I felt like it was better that you said it. Where does Stephen Allen stand today? Are you still looking for new talent? Have you said, okay, I've been there, done that. I don't need to, I've already had kids who are in college. Like I've already done the showroom thing. I've done the store thing. Like it's, very much what Peter and Joy Grayson have done. Like they went through it. They had the freestanding store and now they're really, really big in Korea. Like they've been able to next chapter that. And I can speak to a lot of these brands that have gone through that evolution. Like, Rebecca Minkoff, she sold a majority stake. She's still the face of her brand. She's still very much involved. And it's Claire, who I'm obsessed with, and her calmness, like it's almost rattling how calm she is. She's so level. Where do you stand in this whole evolution of what's going on today and in terms with you and your brand?
So I basically expanded, I would say, too fast. I went from having 8 stores to 23 stores.
That's so much.
I went from, doubling the showroom. I went from 1 showroom to 2 showrooms. I went from working out of my store to having a corporate office, 190 employees. It was kind of crazy for me because it was something where I didn't feel like was really, like I didn't know everything that was going on. I didn't even know the names of some of the people that were working. It was kind of amazing, and it was kind of horrible because it was just like I felt out of control, and I didn't like feeling out of control, and I didn't know if I would survive it, quite frankly, because the New York stores, the LA stores, the San Francisco stores were all really good, and we had a really strong following, but then we started opening all over the country in states that had no idea who we were. And
Right.
I knew it would take a few years to sort of become known, like this is who we're about, what we're about, and this is our point of view and stuff. But, the thing about retail is not like a highly profitable entity by itself. Like having a store, there's a lot of expenses, rent, salaries, insurance, build out, it's a lot. So when you start opening up a lot of stores at once, which we added 15 stores in 2 years, it's very, very taxing. And then you get into a situation where if anything goes wrong, there's not really like, it's one company.
Right.
So, and then our website went down. So we just kind of like had like a series of things. So where we are today is kind of like, I mean, throughout COVID, I was online only, and I was shooting everything at my house and, in the backyard, and I was modeling stuff. My son was modeling stuff, really pared down the business to mostly men's shirts and pants. And then I wanted to really get back to physical retail. So I opened up a store on 20th Street in Manhattan in West Chelsea, kind of where all the art galleries are. And I thought I wanted a place where I could go and essentially it would be my office, but I could
Right.
also see customers. And that's really
Right.
what this is. It's perfect for that because it's a highly educated customer. They love art. All the galleries are here. And, there's a good group of people that are living here as well. And so, and I used to have a store on 19th Street, and it was a good store. So I knew this area would be good. And really, that's what it is. For me, it's kind of like starting with that, building the collection again. And so, I would say every couple months we add another product that I feel, like we're doing knits out of Peru and we're doing outerwear out of Japan. And so, things that even when I had all the stores, it was difficult to keep adding,
Right.
because we had to do, so much quantity to fill all the stores and,
Right.
so anyway,
Are you
it's fun.
are you
So
still
I'm having
talented?
fun. And I haven't really been doing much consulting lately, but I've thought like maybe I'll get back to doing some consulting.
Are you still talent scouting?
Not scouting really, but I find, the niche of this store is a little bit different. So essentially it's product that I make, and then it's product that I find makers that specialize in something. So for example, it could be socks from Japan. It could be sweaters from Norway, but it's like companies that are also manufacturers of that particular product, and they excel in that particular
Right.
thing. So that's how I'm complementing what it is that I'm making. And I think it really feels, quite different because of that. So it's a very edited, curated little shop. And then in addition to that, I have a lot of jewelry, new and vintage jewelry that some is made from, my father who still makes jewelry, and some, are vintage pieces and so forth.
Are you content being men's focused?
We're starting with women's shirts.
You're going back.
as a new category, but we're just doing it, step by step. There's no rush, and I don't need to do a collection. So, as we get, the more requests we get for certain things, then we'll go back into different categories and so forth.
Is your customer as obsessed with social media if they're that educated? Is that really?
I think everyone is kind of on social media, but I feel like it's not like super, super young. I mean, we do get customers in their 20s, but I would say that's not our main customer base. But yeah.
Stephen, this has been an absolute delight. I'm so grateful that I was able to find you, quite literally corner you, because that's where you are. You are in a corner. How can we find you, follow you, get more information about the inimitable Stephen Allen?
Well, I mean, the website, if you join the mailing list, you'll get information, just stephenallen.com. And then our Instagram, we're not that active because I'm not that active on social. So, but I hope to be more. But anyway, we will be posting on our Instagram account. But we're not a brand that's like highly social media focused, for better or for worse, right now.
Right.
Anyway. Yeah, I definitely recognize the importance. It's just my focus is really on product and making great product, and our existing customers, luckily are great and they're very supportive. And I think that the new customers that we get are mostly through existing customers. It's sort of like a word of mouth brand. So
that is amazing. So it's STEVENALLAN. I can't even spell anymore. Stephen with the V, Allen all A's, just for everybody listening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate and review and follow us on every single platform at Handbag Designer. Thanks so much. See you next time.